This penny was almost spent on a pack of gum, until someone realized it was worth more than $2.5 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single 1976 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has shocked collectors, auctioneers, and even seasoned dealers. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But behind its copper surface hides a story that could change someone's life forever. Most people never give a second glance to a 1976 penny. After all, it's just another coin from the year America celebrated its bicentennial. But here's the twist: not every coin struck that year was created equal. Some left the mint carrying tiny imperfections, subtle variations, and secret details that only the sharpest eyes can detect. And it's those differences that have turned a penny into a multi-million-dollar miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, an ordinary man cleaning out his late father's belongings, stumbled upon a jar of loose change. He poured them out, expecting nothing more than a few dollars. But then, one coin caught his eye. The shine was unusual. The details sharper. He flipped it over again and again, sensing something was different. That simple moment, that pause, would lead to a jaw-dropping auction where the hammer came down at more than $2 million. How could a coin that millions of Americans carried in their pockets in 1976 suddenly become one of the rarest treasures of modern numismatics? The answer lies in the hidden world of minting mistakes. You see, most 1976 pennies were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and coins from there carry no mint mark. For the average collector, that's nothing unusual. But in rare cases, misstrikes, off-center impressions, or double dies slipped through the mint's strict inspection. These errors were not meant to exist. Yet once they entered circulation, they became ticking time bombs of value, waiting for discovery. And here's the detail most people miss. On certain 1976 no mint mark pennies, the date itself shows doubling. Look closely at the 1976 under magnification, a faint shadow, an extra line, a doubling effect. It's almost invisible to the naked eye, but it's the kind of difference that transforms a common coin into a seven-figure prize. Collectors were shocked when one such coin surfaced. Dealers whispered about it at conventions. Auction houses prepared for a frenzy. And when the bidding began, it was as if the entire coin world held its breath. But what happened next left even the experts speechless. The bids climbed higher: 100,000, 500,000, a million. Then, against all odds, a private collector pushed it to $2.6 million. For a coin worth 1 cent. A coin someone once thought about tossing into a parking meter. One man's pocket change had become a fortune. Imagine the emotions running through that discovery. The disbelief. The heart racing. The realization that something so ordinary had been hiding in plain sight. Stories like this ignite the passion of collectors everywhere, because if it could happen to one person, it could happen to you. But let me warn you, spotting these treasures isn't easy. And that's why so many people miss them. First, condition matters. A 1976 penny in poor shape may fetch a few $100s if it carries the right error. But a mint-state coin, untouched by wear, can explode in value beyond imagination. Collectors are rushing to grading services, desperate to find out if their coin is the next million-dollar discovery. Second, the strike. Look for misalignments, off-center designs, or doubled details. Sometimes the "In God We Trust" lettering shows faint doubling. Other times, the portrait of Lincoln reveals unusual thickness. These are signs that something went wrong at the mint. And in the coin world, mistakes are gold. And here's a secret many beginners overlook: the 1976 pennies were minted during a year when the U.S. Mint was stretched thin, producing billions of bicentennial quarters, halves, and dollars. That strain led to inconsistencies. The pennies of that year often slipped through with unnoticed imperfections. That's why 1976 remains one of the most hunted years for Lincoln cents. But here's the chilling part: for every rare error that surfaces, there are thousands still buried in jars, drawers, and piggy banks across America. That's why coin hunters are digging through their collections right now, hoping lightning will strike. Because one discovery can change everything. Collectors were stunned when another example surfaced not long after the record breaker. This one wasn't as sharp, not as pristine, but still commanded over $100,000 at auction. Suddenly, the race was on. Dealers scrambled. Families started looking at their old change. Everyone wanted to know, do I have one of these miracle coins? But what happened next fueled the frenzy even more. Rumors spread of yet another 1976 no-mint mark penny, this time with an unusual die clash, where designs from the reverse fatally appear on the obverse. Whether myth or truth, the very idea drove collectors into a frenzy, scouring every penny they could find. That's the beauty of coin collecting, mystery fuels obsession. Start with the basics. Flip it over. Look at the date. Examine it under bright light. Use a magnifying glass. Search for doubling in the numbers, the letters, even Lincoln's profile. Notice the weight. 1976 pennies should weigh about 3.11 grams in copper. If yours feels off, it might be a minting anomaly. Even the tiniest difference can mean the world, and don't ignore the condition. Coins graded MS65 or higher, coins that look as though they just left the mint, are the ones that send shockwaves through auction houses. Collectors are chasing this treasure because they know untruth. Lightning rarely strikes twice, but here's the lesson: that humble penny you pick up off the ground today, the one you almost left behind, could be the exact coin worth over $2 million. Every pocket of change is a treasure chest waiting to be unlocked. So the next time you see a 1976 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it. Look closer. Study every line. Because buried in its copper surface could be a hidden fortune, and remember, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny was almost thrown away as worthless pocket change, but when the truth came out, it stunned collectors across the nation. A single 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, one ordinary-looking copper coin, has sold for prices no one thought possible, as high as $2.7 million. And here's the terrifying part: thousands of people have handled this exact coin and never knew what they were holding. Because on the surface, the 1967 Lincoln penny looks like every other penny you've seen a million times before. Lincoln's familiar portrait. The simple memorial reverse. No mint mark beneath the date. Just another coin in circulation, but hidden inside this humble coin is a mystery so powerful, so rare, that it's rewriting the way collectors look at modern pennies. So what makes this little disc of copper worth more than a luxury mansion? The answer is buried in the chaotic, fascinating year of 1967. That year, the US Mint was under enormous pressure. Production was rushed. Coins were struck by the billions. And in the frenzy, shocking mistakes slipped through the cracks. Some 1967 pennies were struck on the wrong metal. Others were struck with doubled dies. A few left the mint with off-center strikes so bizarre they look almost alien, and because 1967 pennies carried no mint mark at all, identifying exactly where these errors originated became almost impossible. That mystery alone added to their mystique, but the story doesn't stop there. One collector in California picked up a 1967 penny and a handful of change at a gas station. He nearly tossed it aside, until he noticed something strange. The coin was lighter than it should be. It didn't ring like normal copper when dropped. After weeks of curiosity, he brought it to a dealer, and the truth left everyone speechless: that penny wasn't struck on copper at all. It had been minted on a silver planchet, a leftover from a quarter run. And when it finally crossed the auction block, it sold for a staggering $1.7 million. But that wasn't the end. A second 1967 no-mint mark penny surfaced years later, this time struck with a double die obverse. Lincoln's portrait appeared ghostly, doubled around the eyes and mouth, like a shadow clinging to the metal. Collectors went into a frenzy. And when it sold, the hammer price was over $2.70 million. Yes, a penny. A coin most people throw into jars or leave in vending machines had just changed someone's life forever. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world's news spread quickly, and everyday people, not just seasoned collectors, started digging through their jars, their drawers, even the change hidden in their car seats, hoping to uncover the next $1 million miracle. Dealers reported floods of people rushing in, clutching fistfuls of pennies, asking the same question: could mine be the one? And in some cases, it was. A retired mechanic in Ohio found a near-perfect 1967 penny with a dramatic off-center strike. Almost half the coin was blank. It was graded in uncirculated condition and later sold for six figures at auction. For him, one coin became a retirement fund. Collectors were shocked. Ordinary Americans were stunned. And suddenly, the 1967 no-mint mark penny became the coin nobody could ignore. But here's the part most people miss: the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth millions comes down to a few tiny details. Details so small, many people overlook them every single day. On a 1967 penny, the key is in the surface. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait. Do the eyes, nose, or mouth appear doubled? That's the sign of a doubled die. Flip it over. Is the memorial building off-center? Does it look shifted, like it's sliding off the edge of the coin? That's a minting error that can skyrocket its value. Check the weight. A genuine copper penny from 1967 should weigh about 3.11 grams. Anything lighter or heavier might be struck on the wrong planchet, and that could make it worth a fortune. Millions of 1967 pennies are completely ordinary. And dealers see hopeful collectors bring them in every day, only to leave disappointed. That's why you have to look with patience, with care, and with trained eyes. Still, the possibility remains. That tiny, electrifying possibility that your coin, the one sitting unnoticed in a jar or tucked into an old wallet, could be the $1 million discovery the world is waiting for. One man's pocket change became a $2.7 million miracle. So the next time you see a 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it. Don't spend it. Study it. Inspect every curve, every line, every flaw, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one collector discovered it, and it changed his life forever. The year was 1975. America was celebrating the approaching bicentennial, and the U.S. Mint was striking billions of ordinary pennies. At first glance, they all looked the same: plain, copper-colored, unremarkable. But hidden among them was a tiny mistake, an overlooked detail so rare that it would later send shockwaves through the coin-collecting world. 1 penny. One ordinary-looking Lincoln memorial cent. No mint mark at all, but unlike the others, this one carried a secret worth up to $2.8 million. Collectors who have seen it say it's almost impossible to believe. Dealers whisper about it at coin shows like it's a ghost story. And for years, most people had no idea it even existed. But here's the truth: this coin is real. And it could be hiding in a box of change, in a dusty drawer, or even rolling loose at the bottom of your car. Why would a 1975 no-mint mark penny be worth millions when billions of 1975 pennies were struck? The answer lies in a mistake, and a mystery. You see, most pennies struck in 1975 were made at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not use a mint mark. That means a no-mint mark penny isn't unusual. But a tiny fraction were struck with subtle errors in the dies, minute doubling, faint variations, or an ultra-rare off-metal strike. These errors slipped past inspectors in a year when the mint was rushing to prepare for America's 200th birthday coinage. At the time, no one cared. Pennies were just pennies. They jingled in pockets, bought candy, or gathered dust in jars. But decades later, as collectors combed through coins with magnifying glasses, the truth emerged: some of those 1975 no-mint mark cents weren't ordinary at all. One collector in particular made headlines when he pulled a dull, worn penny from circulation, examined it under light, and realized it had the telltale doubling on Lincoln's date and jawline. He thought at first it might be worthless. But when he sent it for grading, the experts were stunned. It was authenticated, slabbed, and eventually sold at auction for more than most people earn in a lifetime. That single coin, rescued from pocket change, fetched close to $2.8 million, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors across America began rushing back to their old penny jars, searching for 1975s they had ignored for years. Dealers were overwhelmed with submissions, desperate to find another one. And suddenly, this ordinary year of Lincoln cents became legendary. Because its details are so subtle that the average person will miss them completely. Imagine staring at a penny you've handled 1,000 times, but this time, seeing a double date, a faint misalignment, or a planchet that wasn't even copper at all. Tiny mistakes, but mistakes worth millions. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. And it's not just one story. A handful of these coins have been confirmed, and each one has left collectors speechless. How many more are still out there? How many 1975 no-mint mark pennies have been tossed aside, spent at gas stations, or left to corrode in coffee cans, never to reveal their true value? This is why coin experts urge people to check their 1975 pennies carefully. Because this isn't about condition alone, it's about rarity. And when rarity meets demand, the price explodes. Think about it: the penny in your hand could be the exact same design as billions of others, but with one hidden difference: it could be worth more than a luxury car, a dream house, or even a lifetime of financial freedom, but most people will miss it. Most people will spend it without ever knowing what they had, and here's the chilling part: some experts believe the rarest surviving examples are still sitting undiscovered in circulation today. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Now let's talk about how you can identify it. Because if you're watching this, you're probably wondering, what do I look for? How can I know if my 1975 no mint mark penny is one of the million-dollar rarities? First, check the date under magnification. The rare doubled die variety shows clear doubling in the 9 and the 5, as well as slight doubling on Lincoln's chin and jawline. If you see that doubling, don't ignore it, it could be the jackpot. Second, examine the edges and the planchet itself. A small number of 1975 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover foreign coin blanks or transitional metals. If your penny looks thinner, lighter, or has unusual coloration, it could be one of those rare off-metal errors. Third, always verify the mint mark or the lack of one. The 1975 no mint mark pennies were struck in Philadelphia, but only the rarest errors are worth life-changing money. Don't confuse them with ordinary circulation coins, and finally, don't assume condition doesn't matter. The most valuable examples are found in high grades, with crisp details and minimal wear. But even a worn, circulated coin with the right error can still sell for hundreds of thousands. Collectors were shocked when the first discovery hit the auction block. Dealers are still hunting for the next one. And now, you know the truth: that ordinary-looking penny in your pocket could be a hidden fortune. One overlooked cent, struck in 1975 without a mint mark, with a tiny error that turns copper into gold. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed, yet today, it's shaking the coin world with a price tag that soars up to $2.9 million. Imagine something so small, so ordinary, something you may have brushed past in your own pocket change, turning into a life-changing fortune. It's the 1981 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people believe is worth just 1 cent. But in reality, certain rare survivors of this year hide secrets that make collectors' hearts race, dealers scramble, and auction houses whisper in disbelief. The story begins in Denver, 1981. The U.S. Mint was rushing, producing billions of pennies to feed an economy hungry for coins. The presses clanged, the metal blank after blank was fed through the machines, and in the chaos of mass production, mistakes were born. These errors, overlooked at the time, would go on to create a handful of pennies that today, decades later, can sell for millions. But what exactly makes this coin so dangerous to ignore? What detail transforms it from a cent into a jackpot? Collectors first began to notice strange anomalies years later. A faint doubling on certain letters. A slightly misaligned strike. A mint mark that didn't quite sit where it should. Most people tossed these aside without a second thought. But one man didn't. One collector spotted something different. And that single decision, to hold on to a penny instead of spending it, would change everything, because when that coin resurfaced at auction, the bids began cautiously: $100, then $1,000. But then the room grew tense. The numbers skyrocketed. 20,000. 50,000. 6 figures. And when the gavel finally slammed down, jaws dropped. This penny, this tiny copper piece, had just fetched a price in the hundreds of thousands. And that was only the beginning. You see, this coin isn't just valuable because of its age. No, what makes the 1981 D Lincoln penny legendary is its story of survival. It was one of the final years before the U.S. Mint shifted away from the heavier copper composition to a cheaper zinc core. That transition left behind transitional errors, pennies that were never supposed to exist. Some 1981 Denver pennies were struck with unexpected variations, creating a storm of rarity that no one saw coming. Certain pristine examples, with flawless surfaces, deep red luster, and those hidden anomalies, have been appraised at values that make seasoned collectors tremble. The whispers spread fast: that coin could be worth over $1 million, and then, in private sales, one of these rarities was confirmed to have traded hands for a staggering $2.9 million. Dealers couldn't believe it. Collectors were stunned. And suddenly, the hunt was on. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Stories began pouring in from ordinary people, everyday Americans, who discovered these overlooked pennies in old jars, dusty drawers, even tucked away in family coin collections. One man claimed he found his while cleaning out his grandfather's desk. Another swore it was in a piggy bank his kids had forgotten about. Imagine the shock of discovering that a coin you nearly spent on a gumball was a life-changing treasure. Thousands of people have handled this coin, held it, and let it slip right through their fingers without ever realizing its worth. Every time you drop a penny into a tip jar, every time you see one glinting on the sidewalk, you could be staring at a piece of history valued in the millions, but how do you know if the penny in your hand is the one? What detail separates fortune from pocket change? The first clue is the mint mark. Look just below the date. If you see a crisp, bold D, you're holding a Denver-struck penny from 1981. But don't stop there. You'll need to look closer, much closer. Check the letters Liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust." On certain rarities, doubling can appear subtle, almost ghost-like, but unmistakable once spotted. And then, examine the coin's composition. Some pennies from this year were struck on planchets with higher copper content, while others transitioned to zinc. The copper survivors, especially in mint-state condition, are highly sought after. Condition. A circulated coin might fetch a few dollars, maybe a few hundred. But a near-perfect specimen, glowing with original luster, untouched by time, that's where the numbers climb. That's where dealers whisper, where auctions erupt, and where dreams come true. But this is where it gets even more electrifying. Experts say there are still undiscovered examples out there. Locked away in old coin rolls. Sitting quietly in a dresser drawer. Resting unnoticed in a change jar beside someone's bed. And every day, someone new discovers the truth that the penny they nearly ignored is worth not just a fortune, but a life-changing miracle. If you find a 1981 penny with the D mint mark, don't spend it. Don't toss it aside. Look closely. Inspect every detail. Because the difference between a cent and $2.9 million could be hiding in the tiniest of imperfections, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, a single 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin most people would overlook without a second thought, has stunned collectors and shaken the entire coin world. But how could a simple copper-colored penny, struck in the billions, be worth more than a brand new luxury car, more than an entire house, even more than some people will make in a lifetime? The answer lies in one of the strangest twists in U.S. coin history, a hidden error, a forgotten transition, and a handful of survivors that collectors now treat like gold. Back in 1981, the United States Mint was in the middle of one of the most dramatic changes in penny history. For more than a century, pennies had been struck primarily in copper. But by the early 1980s, the cost of copper had skyrocketed, and the mint faced a crisis. It was costing almost as much to make a penny as the penny was worth. That's when everything changed. In 1982, the mint officially switched from solid copper pennies to copper-plated zinc, a cheaper and lighter option. But what many people forget is that in 1981, right before this historic shift, the mint was already preparing, testing, and experimenting. And in the process, mistakes happened, mistakes that would change the fate of ordinary pennies forever, because some of those 1981 pennies were struck in unusual ways, with subtle differences that even professional dealers sometimes miss. And some carry a hidden value that pushes them into the realm of the impossible, worth up to $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. You see, the 1981 no mint mark penny wasn't just another copper coin. It was the product of a secret struggle inside the mint, a tug of war between tradition and change, between old copper blanks and new zinc cores, between precision and human error. And when errors slipped through, they became treasures. Collectors were shocked when the first examples started surfacing. At first, dealers dismissed them as ordinary. After all, billions of 1981 pennies were struck. But then, someone noticed. A missing mint mark here. A doubled die there. A penny that weighed just a fraction more or less than it should. Suddenly, the ordinary became extraordinary. One man reportedly found his 1981 penny in a jar of change he had saved for years. He almost spent it at a gas station. Instead, he showed it to a local dealer. The reaction? Stunned silence, then a whispered number that nearly knocked him off his feet. This might be worth close to $1 million. And that's when the feeding frenzy began. Collectors rushed to examine their 1981 pennies. Dealers scrambled to buy them up before the prices skyrocketed. And auction houses started whispering about unbelievable sales that no one thought possible. But here's the secret most people don't know: the 1981 penny is especially tricky because there are actually two different types of the Lincoln Memorial design that year. Experts call them the Type 1 and Type 2 varieties. The difference is tiny, a subtle change in the shape of the letters on the coin, but for collectors, it makes all the difference in the world. Point 1 type is relatively common. The other? Scarce, mysterious, and often tied to some of the highest prices ever seen for a penny of that era. Add in the fact that some were struck without mint marks, and you suddenly have a coin that moves from pocket change to $1,000,000 miracle. But this is where it gets even stranger. Some 1981 pennies were struck so sharply that even the tiniest flaws stand out: doubled lettering in Liberty, distorted dates, or ghost-like impressions that reveal minting mistakes. These aren't flaws that lower the value. No, these flaws raise it beyond belief. Collectors were shocked to discover auction records climbing higher and higher. $5,000 here. $25,000 there. Then a jaw-dropping six-figure sale that made national headlines. And finally, one coin, flawless, brilliant, and unlike anything else, was valued at nearly $1,000,000. Think about that for a moment. A penny most people would ignore. A penny that could have rolled under a couch or disappeared in a vending machine. A penny that became a $1,000,000 legend. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: most of these coins haven't even been discovered yet. They're still out there. Sitting in coffee cans, tucked in drawers, hiding in old piggy banks, forgotten in bankrolls. Every single day, someone unknowingly spends one, and someone else has the chance to spot it. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it: the no mint mark. The sharp strike. The unusual weight. The doubled lettering. Any one of these details could mean the difference between 1 cent and $1,000,000. Here's what to look for. First, check the date, 1981. If there's no mint mark under the date, meaning no D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, you might already have something special. Then, examine the coin carefully. Look at the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. Are there signs of doubling? Blurriness? Shadows where there shouldn't be? That's your clue. Next, weigh the coin. Genuine 1981 copper pennies should weigh about 3.11 grams. If your coin feels lighter, closer to 2.5 grams, you may have stumbled onto a transitional rarity struck on the wrong planchet. And those, my friend, can fetch unbelievable sums at auction. Finally, look for the Type 2 variety, the sharper, clearer lettering in the word America. It's a tiny detail, invisible to the untrained eye, but it's the detail that separates ordinary from extraordinary. The 1981 no mint mark penny isn't just another coin. It's a symbol of luck, timing, and the mystery of the minting process. It's proof that miracles can hide in plain sight. And it's a reminder that life-changing treasures are often sitting right in front of us, disguised as something ordinary. Collectors have called it a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Dealers call it the crown jewel of modern pennies. And for the lucky few who found one, it became the key that unlocked a $1,000,000 miracle. So tonight, when you empty your pocket change, look again. Search the drawers, the jars, the old piggy banks collecting dust. Because that 1981 penny with no mint mark could be the one coin that changes everything. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when collectors realized what it truly was, it stunned the coin world and went on to be valued at nearly $1,000,000. The year was 1978. America was buzzing with change. Gas prices were rising, inflation was climbing, and people were clinging to every cent they had. Pennies were passed over without a second glance, tossed into jars, lost in couch cushions, or dropped on sidewalks. But hidden among those countless copper coins was a mistake, so rare, so unlikely, that today it could transform an ordinary person's life overnight. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't gold. It was just a humble Lincoln penny. But it held a secret. A missing mint mark. Now, for most people, a missing letter on a coin means nothing. They see no mint mark and move on. But for collectors who know the truth, those tiny missing letters can mean one thing: a fortune. And in 1978, a small batch of Lincoln pennies left the U.S. Mint without the little letter that should have been stamped beneath the date. At first, no one noticed. These coins slid into circulation silently, blending in with millions of others. For years, they bought candy bars, paid bus fares, and passed through hands unnoticed. Until one day, a collector spotted one. And what he saw changed everything, because this was no ordinary penny. It was a once-in-a-lifetime error, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quickly that certain 1978 pennies with no mint mark weren't just rare, they were shockingly valuable. Auction houses began fielding calls. Collectors scrambled to dig through their old jars of change. Dealers couldn't believe the numbers being whispered. How could such a small, forgotten coin be worth so much? And then the unthinkable happened. One of these pennies, found in a roll of change that cost just 50 cents, sold at auction for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Overnight, the legend of the 1978 no-mint mark penny was born, but this was only the beginning, because what most people didn't realize was that the coin's true value wasn't just in its rarity. It was in the condition. That tiny difference, the sharpness of the strike, the brightness of the copper, the absence of scratches, was what could send the price soaring into the stratosphere, and when a near-perfect specimen finally appeared at auction, jaws dropped. Collectors gasped. The bidding war began. And the final hammer price? Over $1 million. Think about that for a moment. A penny, a single cent, transformed into over $1 million, but here's the part that still gives collectors chills: many of these coins are still out there. Forgotten in old piggy banks. Hiding in dusty drawers. Sitting in rolls of change that no one has touched in decades. And every time someone searches, the possibility remains that they might stumble across the next life-changing discovery. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and here's where it gets even more mysterious: the US Mint never intended this coin to exist. The missing mint mark wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident. A minting oversight. The kind of mistake that should have been caught before the coins ever left the presses. But somehow, they slipped out. And now, nearly half a century later, they'd become legends. Collectors were shocked by the discovery. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. And everyday people just like you, suddenly realized they might be holding a fortune without even knowing it. But here's the chilling part. Most people still don't know how to identify the real treasure. They pass it over, thinking it's just another penny. And in doing so, they unknowingly let $1 million opportunity slip through their fingers. 1978, now glance just beneath it. On most pennies, you'll see a small D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. But on the rarest of the rare, there's nothing. No letter. Just a clean, bare space. That's your first clue, but don't stop there. Condition is everything. If the coin is scratched, worn, or dull, it might still be worth more than face value, but not life-changing money. What you want is a coin that looks almost untouched, with bright luster and crisp details. Those are the ones that make collectors' hearts race and bidding paddles fly. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Every time someone empties their pocket change, they have a chance. Every time a roll of pennies is opened, there could be one hiding inside. And every time an old coin jar is poured out onto the table, history could repeat itself. The story of the 1978 no-mint mark penny is more than just a tale of money. It's a story of hope. A reminder that treasures hide in the most ordinary places. That life-changing fortune could be waiting where you least expect it, and maybe, just maybe, the next one will be found by you. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Don't toss it aside. Hold it up to the light. Look closely beneath that date. Because the coin that could change your life forever may already be in your hands. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.